Welcome to the next episode, everybody. Take a look. We got almost all the stringers removed other than just a little bit under the captain's chair. A little bit of grinding to do, of course. But take a look here. All the foam's been removed on the left and right side. We've got the 2-cycle oil container there. There's the oil pump. Take a look at that filler line. Look how it's already starting to break down. I wonder if that's because of the ethanol fuel. Hard to say, right? But yeah, it's in terrible shape. Luckily, I've got some extra fuel filler line rated for the new ethanol style fuel, and we'll get that replaced here in a little bit. Let's go back here. I know it's time, right? We need to get into this outboard motor. I don't know what's going on, what the condition is. I can tell you the prop is in pretty good shape here. Take a look. I got on this one, came with the Power Tech, and if you know my Volvo Pensa, I actually have a Power Tech on that one. Maybe this is stock, I don't know, but this is really good stainless, I tell you what. And I always look for here, if there's any bends in it. It kind of tells you maybe if there's some damage to the lower unit. Now take a look here. Oh yeah, look here. You can kind of see some welding that's been done on it. Should I be worried about that? What do you think? All right, so this is the gear oil I'm using, 75W90. Amsoil makes it, 100% synthetic. Mentions that it is for marine use. First time using it, so we're gonna give it a try on this Yamaha Outdrive and see how it performs, but just want to give you a quick shot of what we're using today. They make it in these little less mess, less waste, easy pack, and it's kind of different than I'm used to using. I'm used to using like these standard style tubes, but anyway, we'll make it work. Anyone want to make any guesses if water comes out or not? Hope not. Interesting. So it actually looks like it takes just at 1 quart. Give it a moment, so if there's any kind of air stuck in there, we can kind of force some of that out. I'm not seeing any kind of air bubbles. Okay. Try not to make it a contest to see how tight I can make it. Well, one thing is for sure, I'm pretty happy about this only taking 1 quart. For my other projects, it definitely, these outdrives, or in this case an outboard, would take a lot more. So we'll just give it one more. Okay, I like it. All right, fresh fluid in the back, so I feel pretty good about the lower unit. Didn't see too much water at all. It wasn't milky. Oil looked pretty good. Didn't smell foul or anything like that. So far so good. All right, next up here, we need to get this cover off. I'm not gonna lie, I looked at this thing for quite some time trying to figure out how to get the cover off from this piece here. And I looked at screws at the bottom, and it took me a little bit. I know a lot of you people are gonna be like, hey, how do you not know how to open this? Well, be surprised. But eventually I figured it out. Rotate these little tabs down. There's one up front. Let's see if we can get to this guy too. And voila, this top will come off. And I tell you, it was quite the challenge to figure that out, but I got it. So anyway, let's go ahead and pull this top off. Expose the motor. Now, one thing I noticed right off the bat here was there is a good amount of oil throughout this outboard motor here. 4-cylinder. And just kind of thinking about, what we're gonna do to get this thing up and running, and it's been kind of interesting. So first and foremost, let's go pull one of these spark plugs out NGK, so those are the factory original brands as I read in the owner's manual. We'll go ahead and pull one of these out and take a look and see what that looks like. Okay, take a look. We've got our 4 brand new NGK spark plugs. This specific Yamaha 115 requires the Bravo 8 Hotel Sierra-10s, and you can see here in the manual it is requiring a specific type of gap. And if you don't have one of these, if you have one of the traditional style ones, go with one of these in terms of getting the correct gap set. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but that's going to be one of my recommendations. The reason why you want to go with one of those is you don't damage the electrode. Use one of these tools. Super easy. All you have to do, if you need to raise it up, put it in like that, pull down on your gap tool, or flip it around and you can put it that way and rotate it down, and you will less likely damage one of your brand new spark plugs that way. So keep in mind, go with this type of gapping tool. Highly recommend it. All right, let's get this old spark plug out of here. Set that aside. Let's take our new one that's just recently been set to the proper gap. All right, so we got all 4 spark plugs installed. Torque down to 14 foot-pounds of torque. This one right here, I tell you, was a complete scare, if you would. I'm used to tightening them as much as possible by hand, almost to the point where they'll bottom out, but that one was being a little bit of a pain. But it did torque down, and I kind of compared the angle to some of these other ones here, and it looks like that's just kind of how it is. But I tell you, this one really kind of scared me a little bit here. All right, so 4 brand new spark plugs. What we'll do now is, I know we need to get into this fuel filter as well before we try to start this thing up. And I heard that there may be issues with the starter as well. I'm thinking about degreasing this whole thing because there is a good amount of oil all over the place. And I know we need to go over the linkage as well that was in the manual to make sure everything is set up properly for these 2 carbs. Looks pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and hit this thing with some degreaser, see if we can kind of clean it up a little bit before we go any further. Got a much needed oil degreasing bath going on now. I'll tell you what, this thing was tough to even kind of work on without gloves. So oily. Not surprised, right, with the seals and everything with its age, but still, I needed to get a really good baseline of what's leaking and what's not here, but it's hard to tell when everything's just so oily. So anyway, went ahead and degreased everything. Probably use this full can. But I'll tell you what, wow, there's a lot of grease. One of the things that I wanted to do here is check the quality of the fuel filter as well. And it's kind of interesting, I had to remove this little nut on top up here. And then I kind of swung this around and used a pair of pliers to help loosen it. And I got the filter out, and take a look. I was planning on reusing it and just throwing it right back in, but looks like this is going to delay a few things here because this gasket, I guess, doesn't look like it's in the best of shape. So we'll need to get that replaced. And then if we're going to be ordering a new gasket, we should probably get a new strainer. This one looks, I mean, it's intact, but look at all this stuff underneath here. I guess it was doing its job, huh? What do you think? A lot of stuff in there. We'll need I may order a new one of these as well. I mean, it came off pretty easily, but with my luck, when I go to reinstall it, I'll probably damage something. Looks good so far. I haven't found any gotchas other than the fuel filter, but that will be in shortly. I say we go in now and we try to turn this thing over. Maybe not turn it on, obviously, but let's just see if the starter cranks, because I'm kind of curious. I overheard that they were having issues with the starter before, so we'll go ahead and give that a try. Let's go ahead and grab the key and see what happens here. Well, you're not going to believe this. I tried each and every one of these keys in the ignition, and would you believe it? Not a single one of these actually works. Who gives someone a boatload of keys and none of them work to turn on the boat? Well, you know what that means. We're gonna have to go ahead and pull that out and see if we can replace it with another one. Hopefully we can, I don't know, maybe it may be worth having a locksmith look at it. I don't know. I think these things are pretty easy to come by and just get a new set of keys. Let's go ahead and unscrew this thing live here and see what happens. Maybe it'll just fall out from the back. So underneath where all the gauges are, and I'll tell you one thing that they did build pretty well on this is this ignition switch. I tell you what, look at this thing. It's not your typical one, although it does have what looks like the typical wires. We got some, geez, look at this. We actually have 2, 4, almost, it looks like 6 wires coming out of this thing. Now, surprisingly, it looks like, I'm not 100% sure, but it kind of looks like they've, either this is factory original or they've spliced in this once before. I don't know, it's hard to say. But either way, I'm thinking I'm either going to take these little wire connections off, or I may just snip them and take it to a locksmith and see if they can make me another key for it. I don't know. I think this makes sense to reuse it, but if I can find another replacement ignition switch, I may just do that as well. So I'll do some research, but either way, I'm going to go ahead and remove these little protective covers and see how I can disconnect these wires. So stay tuned on that piece. All right, so we got the new key. We're going to go ahead and splice this back in under the dash and see if this thing will crank over. Stay tuned to the next episode. Hit that subscribe button, like the video if you thought it was helpful, and we will catch you on the next episode. Have a good one, everybody. Take it easy.